Hey everybody, it's Carnival of Randomness. Somehow we've done 2 shows in a row in January. It's already the last week of January, and soon February will make us shiver with every paper we deliver. But Greg did his Spinal Tap thing and blew up again. We'll have to put him back together. But I'm very thrilled that anybody in East Rochester area and will just remember this shop, and he's still around, and we're very happy to have Bob Hyatt on today. Hi, Bob.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not only that, we never stop. We always go over the top to entertain you. We have Danny and Ethan on, too. Hi, guys.
Dan Lomenzo.
Yeah.
And Ethan Porter.
Yes. Thank you for doing the last names. It's okay. I always pronounce them wrong. That's why I only say the first names.
No problem.
You got my trick. So, how did this all start out? I know it started out as a stereo shop. Was it on Goodman, maybe? But just how did this all come together for all you guys?
I started out of my house before these guys were around in '61 and moved into Goodman Street on the side of the Park Lee, 171 South Goodman, in the fall of '65.
Wow.
And I was working at the time at Rochester State Hospital, which was more like play than work, but that's why I was there.
But the store was a mecca. It was a mecca of hi-fi, crazy people. We were just so excited to be there, especially on a Saturday. Remember a Saturday, Bob? Everybody was in there. It'd be like great musicians that were all from all over the city, and college kids that were trying to build Dynakit amplifiers, and just the people that were working there were just so receptive to everyone there. It was a circus. It was a wonderful time to be there.
And I would think, too, at that time, 1965, it was sort of new.
Oh, yeah.
And it was something new and exciting.
It was.
Yeah, the ones that were there before me were Jerry Fink on Clinton Avenue.
Yeah.
And Dave Craig.
Dave Craig.
Who also, speaking of the symphony last night, played in the symphony.
Dave?
Yep. That was his primary.
His store was on University or something, wasn't it?
It was over by University in Alexandria.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
remember he had big Bozak speakers and giant cabinets, and over there it was a crazy place. But hi-fi was
well.
exploding.
Then a few years before I opened was DLK Electronics, which was David Lloyd Kendick.
That's great.
And Harry Davidson.
That's just great, though. But Hyatt's was the mecca. It really was.
And did you learn, I know you did stereo repair, did you learn on the job or you had help? I know you were telling I don't know why we do this. We should tape the pre-show conversations. They're better than the show.
Well, a lot of the people that worked with me and for me were better techies than I was. I was more of a hustler.
Oh. You were the man, though.
From when I was a kid with paper routes when I was 9, and, I grew up in Penn Yan.
Yeah, that's what I used to do. I had a paper route, and what I used to do during the summers, I would go around. You need the lawn cut, you need this done, you need that done. Sure. But the best I could do for stereo repair was to get the point when the needle had dust on it, I could get it off.
Get it off.
That was about it.
Well, that fixed everything.
Yes, I was like a master of that.
Well, wherever I go now, it's hard not to think that you're getting screwed on the rent, because when I went into Goodman Street in '65, my rent was $900 a year.
Yeah.
It's $75 a month. In the second year we were there, we did $700,000 worth of gross business with a expense of $900 a year for the rent.
Yeah.
When the Koss brothers took the place over, my rent went from $75 a month to $1,000 a month.
Sure.
And the original store was 32 feet long and 12 feet wide. And then my wife got involved, and we took over what used to be the garbage area of the Park Lee and built the back part of the Park Lee, which was like 30 by 30. So,
also, I like the basement, right?
Well, we didn't have the basement, but they didn't use the basement, so we got to use it.
That was my favorite spot.
Yeah. Well, that's where Mick Gazowski and Artie were.
They were all
and half the basement still had a dirt floor.
See, I used to like that because I was I used to go to Empire Comics for like 30 years, and I always used to tell the owner when they moved down Stone, yes, but I like the sleazy old newsstand feel of the other store better.
Sure. That was Rochester had a something to it.
They had character. You can go to like a lot of these stores now. It's like, well, I'll go in and out, but before I would say it was an experience. And you sort of got to know people, and it's like, this is awesome. It'd be like waking up. I want to go here today.
Yeah, that's what the store was like. You met people, you met new people, and you learned things about equipment that you never knew before.
Where were you before? I wasn't born yet. No wonder. Still, I blame you. Still, I don't know anything. I still could have come back before I was born.
Sure. Well, Mick Gazowski, he's become one of the most famous mixing engineers of all time. And we were 16 years old. We were 15 and 16.
Yeah, I think he was 15 years old.
Yeah. And I'd come down, and his father would drop us off, and I would just kind of hang around and watch everything happen with Mick.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. He's in Vegas now. He's doing real well.
And I think there's something, like reading some old rock biographies, like the old English guys. Like now you take it for granted you can get anything, but they would find a blues album, they'd all congregate. I think this was a new experience. Rock was exploding.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, I remember how I got started. I was driving home, and I was living off Gregory Street on Ashland, down in the South Wedge. And on my way home, I saw this sign of a place on Mount Hope, which was records. And it was the early part of Lenny Silver and Midtown Records.
Wow.
And I went in there, and I bought like 12 or 15, and they put me down as a wholesale, Yeah. It was $2.47 for a $3.98 record. And that's how I got started. And then I had a couple of friends that knew a couple of the sales reps. One guy lived in Silver Creek, and he repped Sherwood. And I talked him into selling me stuff on my house at Harvard Street. I think I got started about late 61, early 62.
It's actually a good question. Where did you get was it Midtown? Where did you get your records in those days?
Rochester One Stop.
Yeah.
And then one of the attractive girls that worked at Rochester One Stop, Rose Gisson, came working for us.
I went to school with her.
And
she was in my class.
She didn't always wear all her attire.
No.
And
that's
all the boys would be overlooking at the racks below if she was on the stepladder filing movies.
I still
became a detraction a little bit.
Because I actually got a lot of my records, believe it or not, like at Gold Circle. Yeah. I got the Beatles Blue album there, and one of the big things for all of us, I think it was at B. Foreman's, was the $2.99 ELO with the little spaceship.
Yeah, sure.
Well, there was a guy who repped Columbia Records named Jack Perry, and at that time, when they used the records for the stereo station, they had big imprint on the back. This record is for such and such, and he bleached that out. Yeah. And we bought the records from him. Started with $1, and then he went to $1.25. So the records, they weren't marked on the record, which is what they told you they were going to do, but they were,
They still called them cutoffs.
So you'd have to bleach that. If you look carefully enough, you can still see it.
I actually have a couple of those, because I knew people who worked at record places that, which no names, having like these. Who is this? This doesn't even have a name on it.
Yeah.
What kind of music were you into back then?
Pretty much anything that would sell. I mean, especially folk. Herb Alpert in late '65. Do you remember when we had the brownout? You guys might not remember it because of your age. But anyways, I ordered 1,000, and I thought I was going to get 40010, which was whipped cream. And it was a green album with a girl with whipped cream covering mostly body parts.
I had seen that one.
So I pre-ordered, and I paid for 1,000. Well, I'm not sure why I was home on a Wednesday, But I lived on Harvard Street, 923, and we had a common law driveway. And I came home, and there's a Red Star truck parked in my driveway. So I got out, and the guy says, okay, he says, I got a lot of stuff here for you. I said, yeah, I know. 25 is how they came packed, right? So I figure, well, 25 into 1,000 is 40 boxes. He says, where's our help? I said, what are you talking about? He said, just, you know. He says, you're kidding me, right? I said, no, why? He opens up the truck, right? I says, well, who's all the rest of it for? He says, it's all for you. They shipped me 10,000 instead of 1,000. And I'd prepaid them, right?
Minor mistake.
Yeah. So, you know, I was fairly honest back then, but not completely. So I said, well, you know, you never know. So about 2 weeks later, I'm in the store at night after dark, and the phone rings. And we had a payphone there, which was our store phone as well, right? And this was when the store was still 32 by 12. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think it was 28 by 12. So I answered the phone. It's Jerry Moss, A&M Records, right? And in the course of the conversation, he says, hell, he says, I'm still sleeping on the couch. He says, we're just trying to get started, and we can't, you know. So while we're talking, the lights go out. It was the brownout. Oh. So we make a deal, $1.25. I paid him $1.50 for the 1,000. And when he sold them to me, he said, they're all going to be stamped, promo and stuff. I said, yeah, I don't care. Well, of course, none of them were stamped, you know. They were all just brand new in the boxes. So it took me about 3 weeks to get the money to send the rest of the money for the others. And I had a letter, which I probably still got someplace, that I could buy any A&M record for $1.25. And it didn't say anything about dates or anything else. Well, the last time I looked, he was worth about $950 million.
And you contributed very well to that.
That's awesome.
You know what my parents always bring up to me, being Rochester, I'll hear because my dad worked at Kodak, there's always the blizzard of this, the blizzard of that. Yeah. They used to say that the horses that lived on Laser Street in the city, that they had plows pulled by horses.
Well, those records, you know, I wasn't prepared to get rid of 10,000 of them. I probably sold 2,000 or 3,000 of them to Lenny because he was paying 50 cents or 75 cents more. So I think I probably made $0.25 a piece on, you know, 3,000 or 4,000. But it was so funny.
It's a great record.
They're all for you.
It's more about the cover.
Yeah, that's the one you see on Facebook all the time.
But they didn't ship me that. What they shipped me was Going Places, which was, I think Whipped Cream was 40008, and Going Places was either 10 or 12. And that's all they had. They had 10 or 12. You know, the Mariachi Brass, Herb Alpert, you know.
Yeah.
But I wondered, like, in those days when people needed stereos repaired, what was, like, the main problem usually when they first started out like that?
Well, one of the main problems of the early days was quality control.
Yeah.
I mean, I took a friend to the show in New York, and he was so down and out that he slept with pillows on our hotel room floor. And I helped him get Pioneer as a sales rep. I didn't even buy Pioneer from him for a year. And I was selling primarily Scott and Sherwood. And we would probably have 20% failure out of the box for the American product, right? When I finally started buying Pioneer from him, I went through over 100 before I had one bad one. So it was like 20% defect, American made, less than 1% from Japan.
That's amazing.
Pioneer.
Yep.
I bought my quad from you, Bob, among other things. QX 949, does that sound right? Something like that? 9 something?
Yeah, I think it was 949. Didn't sell as many of them. That was a big unit.
It was a beast. Yeah, I loved it.
636, 7. Yeah, it was like, I think 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Five different ones, depending on the application.
Yeah.
You had some other stuff, though. You had good used stuff that was great. You had I got a Harman Kardon from you that I had it for years. It was wonderful. And didn't you have What was I trying to think of?
There were two guys that were working on their, I think, doctorate degrees, both of them. Ted Jaztek and Fred Cross. And these guys were like, Jaztek built his own speakers. Do you remember a guy named Larry Smith?
I know a lot of Larry Smiths.
Okay, well, this guy's claim to fame was his middle daughter was Playmate of the Year.
Oh, man.
Julie Carlisi. She was married to a guy in Rochester and kept
I
his
seeing
name.
a trend here, like with
Yeah.
the person working there. And this.
Yeah. And he and I used to go out to Sattlers. We would buy half of our stuff from Jack Perry at the Columbia because you couldn't beat the dollar price. You know, even though, and they weren't all, some of them weren't even marked. But Sattlers had, it's, I think, where the theater is now. Out in Henrietta. And they had pretty good deals on records.
That's actually the one problem I used to have with my stereo was like the one speaker would go wonky and you'd be playing it and all of a sudden it would go out and you'd have to plug it back in.
Repair was a good thing. It was a big thing for you guys.
Well, I had a very nice experience yesterday, and I'll get it, and I'll give you the site. We're trying to figure out who wrote it. It's very detailed about all of the hi-fi stores and the stereo shops in Rochester.
Oh,
And it goes through the whole thing, and he was thinking that it might be somebody that, but I don't think it was who he thought it was. It was because whoever it was had worked for JB Sound, the Sound Chamber. I don't think for DLK.
What was the one in Pittsburgh? What was his name? He moved a couple times. Sound high end.
I don't know, the one I remember.
Piano player.
The one I remember was Duke
Jimmy Gill.
Spinners.
Jimmy Gill.
Dan Farley.
Okay.
I love the live.
Dance, Dan? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Playing cards right now, Dan. The stuff's in the door for you. Okay, buddy. And I dropped it down to 75. I told you 80, but it was wrong. It was 75. Thanks, buddy.
Another Carnival of Randomness exclusive for everybody.
I thought I had it on there.
No, I love it. Like, I'll have, like, if anybody's phone goes off, we just answer it. Let's put it on the show.
Bob, I meant to ask you, how old are you? You're 50?
Yeah.
39.
Yeah, I wasn't
How
sure.
come we're all 39 on these
Jack
shows
and I are
every year?
both 39.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
This is like an opinion question. Nothing matters on this show. Now, I've heard a lot of people who are really into music say still records are the best for sound, audiophiles. You get a good stereo system, it's the best sounding still.
Well, I still have a couple of turntables, but the Thorns and all the $59 acoustic research turntable. Remember that, baby?
Those?
A lot of the new stuff is supposed to be phenomenal. There's a guy that used to work for me part-time, Richard Barone, who's probably going to get tossed out of his house one of these days by his wife because he's got probably 4,000 or 5,000 LPs there. And he swears by it. Do you guys know a young guy who lives over in the Batavia area named Lowell?
No.
Well, he's got, I was at Leader TV, and Kevin was telling me that he went over there last month, and this guy has got 4 large barns, and he said you can barely walk through them, all loaded with fine hi-fi equipment.
Oh, my God.
Half of which probably because of the coal
Yeah.
will be inoperable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he bought probably half a dozen pieces from me 6 years ago when we moved from the Piano Works over to Pittsburgh.
I think everything some people collect different things too. I could see collecting different if I had the money, different stereo systems, just vintage ones. That was always like my goal, to be one of those old guys being about a little cognac, having a pipe, and listening to like a really cool one of those glowing radios.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's still stuff like Macintosh and stuff. They were some of the best that you could ever have.
Your system is incredible.
I have a couple Macs myself, and it's just wonderful. But what you were talking about, records, they sound wonderful. They have a fluid sound to them. They have a nice, and the bass is nice and rich. But the noise is unbearable. After you listen to of course, I'm probably going to hear from this, but you listen to a CD and there's no noise, and you can hear the instruments, you can hear the depth so much better.
Some of the new vinyl is supposed to.
It's good.
You have taken care of that.
Any thoughts? Does anybody care on black vinyl versus different color vinyl?
Remember the Nas album was red?
Yeah. I take it from a different perspective from comic books. Like in the 1990s, there was a big glut of comics, and you had to try to stand out to sell. So I just I'll look at my email from different records, and you have all the cool covers, and a couple of my friends, and I think it's just to try to appeal to the eye.
Yeah.
But I'm, like I always say, like black vinyl still.
Now they have 200 gram vinyl and 180 gram heavy vinyl. It's supposed to be able to last better. Do you have some of those, Dan?
I bought the only record of recent that I bought, which was now probably 4 or 5 years ago, was of course Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
And I don't have a system that would do it justice, so I've never actually played it.
Yeah.
I have it.
You don't hear it coming out the one speaker and then like...
Well, the other issue, too, of course, is that no matter where you go into, you're going to pay at least $30 for a piece of vinyl, which is wow, 3 albums, $100.
And the first few plays are amazing. They just sound so wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But then
it starts to wear.
It starts to wear.
Now, I could be totally wrong in this. What I've been told by a couple people, too, is the colored vinyl just isn't as good as the black.
Yeah, I can't even imagine it being as good.
It looks nice. But one thing about records, too, it's like from different CDs, like think of Live at Leeds, or something like that. You would get, it would be cool. You'd have it in your hand. You might have like some extras, programs in there. I love reading liner notes.
Photographs.
Well, how about this? If you bought Chicago albums, their second album, their third album, and I think their fifth or sixth, you got an enormous poster along with it. I have all of them. And it's just a trip. I've been meaning to put them up on the wall. Those were the extras. When you would get, now you'd buy a poster, right? Yeah. But within the album, you'd get it. I have a Quincy Jones album where there's a nice, same thing. You got a poster, which was really hip, Well,
what's amazing is the lack of manufacturers with stereo magnetic cartridges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had some Pickering and Stantons that I'd bought from Sylvania over in Batavia when they went out of business. And I think I paid, I don't know, $5 or $6 a piece. And I sold them to the kid on Monroe Avenue 2 years ago, I think for about $30 each.
Mm.
Yeah.
And if you look like Shure, I mean, they own,
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, they own that market.
This guy with the Shure...
the M77?
Yeah.
And I actually don't know this. I bought the White album when I was in Toronto.
Sure.
And now... But it had the poster. Now, I don't know if this was the original album. It had the poster with...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I had Ringo Starr sign his. It's the only one I've ever
nice.
Well,
who's he?
If you look for collectibles, it's amazing when you look and you see what some of this stuff is selling. What it's listed for doesn't necessarily mean it's selling for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well, I heard actually last night at the Planets, Julia Figueres was telling us, I guess if you there's a Japanese album of the Planets, if you can't find it, this is like worth a heck of a lot of money.
Okay, wild.
And I've always torn by that being like a comic book person and a record person. I've always gotten them for enjoyment. And I never thought of, like I will hear people say, make sure you hold on to this. Yeah. This is a rare album. And I just never thought of it like that. But I do know, like from the comic book store especially, some people just looked at it as a business. They would come in,
sure.
It's your life, do what you want.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever looking for any rare stuff, when we had to get rid of our storage area, they tore the building down over in the Piano Works behind Wendy's. I gave Buzzo probably 1,000 LPs, some of which the covers had gotten wet. So, and he's got them in the basement of his store in Geneseo. So if you ever want to find some, because they were tearing the building down and we had to get rid of the stuff. So I called him up. He came up.
Now, you evolved over the years from this into what we know as your videos. How did that happen?
Well, we saw the handwriting on the wall in the early 80s. The Present Company, Century Wholesale, all of a sudden Pioneer is selling everybody.
Yeah.
So, and in Rochester, I think just JB Sound primarily and us were selling Pioneer. And now, you can get it, there were 4 places, I think, let's see, Nom Brothers too. They all were, so they shot themselves in the foot because pretty soon they were doing a lot less business than they were doing before. Yeah. I think we did a couple $100,000 with Pioneer about 1974. And our really good years there were from 67 to about 74. And when we closed up the Titus Avenue store, the people that had the skating rink, Sharky's in East Rochester, they bought at the auction the 10,000 LPs I had left for 10 cents a piece. $1,000.
Oh, if I could travel back in time.
Yeah.
In fact, it became depressing when we closed up the Piano Works. We had about 40,000 VHS tapes, and my youngest daughter here didn't want to go through so we donated them to a charity. And when we checked our cost on them originally, it's about $2.5 million. Sure. But we'd already written them off, so we couldn't even write them off because we'd done it, through the years.
Yeah.
But things change.
Yeah, you have to evolve. That's the one thing. As you get older too, it's like nothing stays the same.
No.
Well, look at JB Sound, TLK Electronics.
Sure.
Both financially went out of business.
Yep.
And DLK found that when you had 4 stores instead of 1, you had 1 you could keep track of, but you had 3 that somebody else was running.
That's what I like about expansion and stuff like that. I always think it's hard to do quality control. Well, you can't go flying around every place.
Yeah, his son ran the speaker place out in Henrietta.
Oh, yeah.
Which was...
Yeah.
I took a speaker there to get fixed. He did a great job, actually.
We just
Did you know Shahinian? Sorry. Did you know Dick Shahinian? Does that name ring a bell?
I know the name, but I don't place the face.
Ethan and I were talking last night. He used to work for Advent in New York. And I was telling Ethan when I was living in New York, I befriended a fellow whose father worked at High Fidelity magazine. He was like second editor-in-chief or something. And they had connections with all the manufacturers. Dick split from Advent and started Shahinian speakers and made his own design, which I still have from 1984. We bought him again while I was living down there. And wow, what just a remarkable design. And it's the most airy sounding speaker. Incredible. Really just incredible. Dick was something else, and again, recently passed. I happened to do some research and found a couple that were actually on sale on eBay a ways back that were like the model just before the ones that I bought. But he started his own factory and was making them. But it was, now that I'm thinking of it, it was way after Goodman Street, so you wouldn't have been hip to him. But just saying
I remember the name, probably from magazines.
Yeah, he was really something else. But
yeah, those small speakers were back then, like Advent and the small with the AR-100s. And I remember
bookshelf
AR-4s.
One time, I guess it was Lafayette or somebody was selling them for $100 a pair. and we went to your place, and you gave us each a $100 bill, and we went and cleared him out. There was like 10 of us.
Was it? I think it was Advent, wasn't it?
Were they Advent?
It was
I thought they
Advent.
were
It was
Fords.
Advent, and it was the guy from Buffalo who seemed to be a little wacko if you went in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Over on
it's
Ridge
funny.
Road.
It's funny because it wasn't AR, because AR pretty much sold anybody.
Yeah, okay.
And my wife Bev and I went, I think in '69, to Massachusetts on a Saturday, and we went to the address where AR was, figuring it was, and it looked like an old dumpy barn.
Yeah, that's too bad.
And you got to know, like, I went down to EPI because we were selling a lot of EPI.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The rep that was selling us Sherwood and EPI eventually bought Sherwood, and they were real hustlers. In 1971, we had our biggest year, and we lost $42,000.
Oh my God!
Probably from, a few things, but we went to EPI. And it always impressed me because their literature showed a table tennis table.
Yeah.
Well, I was a pretty good table tennis player, right? So they had to clear the table tennis table. It looked like it hadn't been used in 5 years. And I couldn't believe how small it was.
Yeah.
Well, he borrowed $50,000. Winslow Burhole was the inventor of the EPI speakers. And he lost the company. So then he started Burhole Acoustics. And when that went bad, he moved to Canada. And he started doing the, $2,000 speakers. Winslow
Ethan, did you have something to say before?
I forgot what that was.
If it comes up, jump in.
I'm old,
That's how I am, too.
Yeah, my mother used to say the train will eventually come in.
Yeah.
It's me. I'll know, I'll remember something we said, 2 days after this, whatever.
Right.
One thing I really want to ask was, what are your thoughts on Betamax? Because I got a Betamax. I was like the contrarian where whatever came out I would get. I still have my Betamax player and a bunch of things.
Sure.
Well, I sold a $1,000 machine last night to a customer from Albany, an 1800 SLO Sony 1800, which was a primary studio machine. It came out of a TV station in Denver. And I sold it to him for $200. Well, the guy supposedly is a beta expert, right? But he doesn't understand one thing. You never take a machine that's been sitting in my garage for 6 years until it warms up to room temperature and put a tape in it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he did.
Yeah, nice try.
So, well, he'll be okay.
Nice try.
I actually had a friend who sweared by Laserdisc, and somehow, even in the decades, he would say, okay, if you go into this store, go way, way in the back, they had them still.
Yeah.
But
they still have them.
Would you like to buy 400 of them? That's how many I got left.
Do you really?
I never used one,
I'll tell you
actually.
what. You get the machine, and I'll sell you the 400 for $200.
Actually, you know what the first thing I bought?
if you want to go through the work,
See, I remember
of selling them on eBay or Amazon.
Hey, look for them. But first thing I ever bought from you actually was the Best of John Belushi.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
I always remember that because that was the first time I ever went in there. And I was looking for Pink Floyd's The Final Cut. It was a series of videos.
Sure.
See, I still remember interaction like that. It was very friendly and everything else. It was that guy was mean to me.
The Blues Brothers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Question. Where do you go nowadays in Rochester to get high-end audio?
Yeah, very
equipment?
good question.
Anybody? No? You see that guy that's always
The guy,
Dave, he advertises all the time.
Don't say Dave.
well, he sold that now. The people that own that used to be a furniture store, that whole place. So Maynard Electric, that whole place now, they bought Dave out. He's still
The ones that you see the TV ads for, you mean?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, he and his wife have a very nice place in New York City.
Wow.
They're into Broadway shows and
Wow.
things like that.
Everybody probably knows this growing up. What did you always hear from New York, on WWOR, Crazy Eddie's?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Remember those?
Those prices are insane.
Yeah, that was great.
I used to love
Quite a retailer.
Yep. Used to go there all the time. I would buy blank cassettes there. And the place was a mess. I mean, a mess. And he and his workers would be back there, and they're just yelling constantly. Like, if you had a headache, you'd have one even worse when you left. It was not the friendliest place, but definitely the best place to buy cassettes. How about that? TDK SA90s or Maxell XL
I still got a few.
90s. Oh, yeah? How much would you sell those to me for?
I got a guy that goes around to Goodwill store for me. And I think he found, I don't know, a box of 10 of them brand new. The gray label.
Yeah.
SA90s. Yeah.
Can we go back to EPI speakers for a minute?
Sure.
Because when I bought the Pioneer Quad, which, by the way, and talking about, 5.1 stereo and all that stuff, I'm sure, well, everybody here remembers that, of course, Columbia first came out with CBS with the quadraphonic stuff, which was really kind of phony, really, because although it required 4 speakers, you basically got the basic of the signal in the front 2 and basically some reverberation in the back. It didn't amount to much. But then Atlantic came out with discrete 4-channel, and you had to buy, which I did. I bought you had to buy a separate cartridge in order to, facilitate hearing like the 4 channels. But I'm telling you, they were way ahead of the game. I had Average White Band's Pick Up the Pieces album, and the best one was Joni's Court and Spark album.
Oh, yeah.
And hearing that spread out in 4 channels.
Yeah.
But the trip with EPI that I want to mention, which of course I got from you, Robert, everything came from you, was the fact, and I still can't figure this out from a design factor. So they sat on the floor, at least the ones that I had, but they had speakers on 2 of the 4 sides. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the big ones though, the ones that were like $4.99 retail and $9.95 retail had speakers on all 4 sides.
Oh, jeez.
They were the 6-foot 4 towers.
No,
when we closed up that store, somebody bought a pair of them for $250, and I had a pair on East Avenue. When we lived on East Avenue for a long time, we finally, my wife finally convinced me that even though we had a room that was 20 by 30, that the speakers had to go.
Yeah. Well, I just found that design to be just so unusual, and when you think back on it, I was living in a small room when I was going to college in Boston Music College, and we had 4 of them in our living room, which was tiny, and just the way that things were situated, because we didn't have a lot of room, we basically had to block off one of those sides. So we were only hearing one of the 2 sides, but I've never seen a speaker design since then. Well, like that, you know what I mean? And these weren't the huge ones.
The 2 big ones. The one was about like this. It was a 400, and I think it retailed a pair for $4.99.
Yeah,
either $3.99 or $4.99. But the big ones, and of course today, the damn cabinets would cost you $300 or $400. Because everything today is,
Actually, all I feel like doing after this, like tomorrow, is going to the library or like ordering some books online about this stuff. It's fascinating, and I'm like one of these people. It's like I like fill the vacuum if I hear like for history and everything. I love to like researching, and I want some gear books now.
Yeah, high fidelity is a world. It's a whole world on its own. And once you hear it the way it's supposed to be, it's like, wow.
All I can do is I have that Jimmy Page coffee table book, and it's got his amps and everything in there. I can go watch that.
Well, that system that Al Williams has is something else.
Yeah. Well, Mick designed those beautiful speakers. Those are like $12,000 a pair.
Yeah, is that what
some
he's
of the
using?
finest. He uses them.
Al's using Mick's monitors.
Oh, does Al have those?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think he doesn't. But he's got a hell of a system.
Yeah, but these are Mick designed these with Larry Swist and made these beautiful monitors that just they've taken over the world, but they're just way too expensive. And Mick Gazowski, he started right there when he was 15 at your store, Bob. And
we should have like one of those little route things where everybody came out of Bob's store.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
boy.
okay, this person was here, this person
Yeah,
was here.
I think they only had just Nancy and Mick. I think just the two kids.
Two kids.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. We had the studio at his house when we were 14 years old, recording people doing commercials and things like that. All
My
kinds of-
drums.
Oh
You
yeah.
let me bring my drums over after rehearsal with the Contemporary Museum.
Absolutely one of the most
Yeah.
phenomenal.
You have me
ones.
thinking like we're like 39 now, but when we grew up, there was a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But one business question I want to ask, and I very much suspect this, my uncle Harold Hummel owned Clover Pool, and I used to hear about how he was one of the first stores, and then the bigger stores came in, and how he managed to stay in business, adapt. And you had to deal with the box store, the big blockbusters.
Yeah.
How did I just so respect what you've done. How did you manage to compete with them and stay in business?
Hustle.
Yeah.
I think, one of my views on that, too, is I think there's a personal thing where you can go to these places, you have this, I don't know, and you can get the experience. You go talk to somebody who knows what they're doing and build a relationship.
It's a thing of the past. It's a crazy time right now.
Well, there are still, just in the last year or two, one of my good customers who used to, a lot of the equipment that we had for storing came from his company, which was a supply company for metal shelving and stuff, Jerry Edwards. And I bet he had probably 2,000 LPs.
Jeez.
And all
The one
stuff.
I want to hear about is I heard about, surprising, Tony Levin's record collection's enormous.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. He used to come in the store.
Well, you want to hear the best?
Yeah.
Bev and I got married in 1967. And we had some music for $75. Not Chuck, but Gap. Jerry Nywood.
Yeah.
Tony Levin. And Stevie Gadd.
Yeah. What
For
was that,
4 hours,
nothing?
cost us $75.
I still love,
I'm not sure if that was from my hustle, or I think it was more from Dixie Carey.
Yeah.
Probably.
Because Dixie Carey was a real good friend of Jerry Nywood's.
Yep.
And
I
think that's where
I've seen those videos. I think it's from it's like a benefit for PBS.
Yeah.
I'm going, it's Tony Levin with hair.
Oh yeah.
We both had hair at
So
one time.
that period of music in Rochester was just so amazing.
And I've always I can't say how much respect I have for Tony too, because if you've all met him, he's like the nicest homeless guy too.
Oh, he's amazing.
I once said he's up there with Jaco Pastorius, and he looks at me, and goes, "Don't even compare me to him. I'm not as good." And
Yeah. Oh, he's just great. Well, Dixie Carey brought so much life to that store. He used to park his car. He'd pull up on the sidewalk and park right in front of the door. No one could get in or out. And he'd call you from his cell phone. Way back then, he had a cell phone in the car. And he'd go, "Where's Hyatt? Get Hyatt out here."
Yeah, he took Gary Spear to lunch one day.
Yeah.
And I'm having a little senior moment.
How dare you?
The woman was quite vocal and a little profane. And Gary was a little mild and meek, and he couldn't believe it. It was one of Zacchary's favorite food places.
Oh, yeah.
It'll come to me.
He was the greatest.
Next time we see you guys, I'll tell you where it was.
we definitely have to do this again. This is like part one.
Oh.
But there's more, and I told Greg Andrews, if we put him back together after he did the Spinal Tap thing,
Sure.
that we want to come to your store. Now, Bob is still operating, and it's better when the guests explain their hours and what they do instead of me, because it's like with the last names, like Bob, go on.
Yeah.
Well, Dave Craig was selling acoustic research too.
Yeah.
And he was probably the only person. I think the second place that got it was probably DOK Electronics. And he was my best salesperson, because people would go over there if they were price shopping, and as soon as they would ask him what the discounted price was, he would piss and moan about me. And then most of them didn't know who I was, because we had the smallest, little store on Goodman Street on the side.
Can I sneak in something real quick here, if
Yeah.
I may? Okay, you were talking about good salesmen. I should be right up there, and here's the reason why. Before I started to come to work for you, my father got me a job working for the Schifino brothers at Rochester Radio. Right?
Gene Lanning.
That name, I just
Oh,
remember.
he ran the place.
Okay, all right. So anyway, I had a modicum of knowledge about stereo stuff, but certainly not, whatever. Anyway, I got a job selling stereo equipment. Well, I had already been a customer of yours. So what I would do when people came in looking to buy stereo equipment at Rochester Radio, I'd say, come on, let's go in the sound room. I'd close the doors, blast what was ever on, whether it's the radio or whatever, and I'd say, hey, this is all junk. Go to Bob Hyatt's.
Well, you know what's funny?
171 South Goodman.
It was funny. The four
Whatever.
Schifino brothers were so nice.
They were.
I mean,
but if they only knew, Rob,
I was working at
I wouldn't be here. They were Italian.
probably 62 or 63, right? And I'm working at the state hospital. I think my salary was about $5,200 a year, about $100 a week, and that was grade 12, which is why I came to Rochester. I really wanted to work at Willard because that was where all my buddies was, and I was their softball fast pitch pitcher, right? But they only had an item 7. Well, there was a difference of $1,200 going to Willard to work or coming to Rochester, and I still pitched and played for Willard while I was working at Rochester.
Why?
Finally, one of the guys said, hey, this is long enough. You ain't playing anymore for them. You're playing for us. But that was, yeah.
That's actually really quick stories. My dad worked at Kodak. He used to play softball. He used to talk about shifty gears all the time.
Shifty gears.
Well, and his big story was he batted against Johnny Antonelli. And I'm like, well, how was he? He said, he didn't throw any fast stuff. Well, how'd you do? I struck out.
Yeah, Antonelli was, I think 49.
Yeah.
When I was in the service in New York, my shortstop, I was pitching there. My shortstop was in charge of special services, and twice, if I had to do over again, I'd go to 10 games or 15. But I went to 2 games, and both times I had the owner of the visiting team's seat behind the screen for free.
That's great.
And Antonelli won 2-1 and 1-0, the 2 games.
Well, I love my dad's bravado though about that. Well, no, you didn't do anything against him, obviously, but this has been really fun, and it's amazing how fast the hour goes by.
Well, they lived right next to the Welts.
Welts, yeah.
Yeah.
Give your hours, Bob.
Yeah,
I
we
think
just.
that's what
The other thing
Rob
I wanted
wanted.
to say though too is one of the things you do, which is really awesome, is you can transfer. Like, isn't it like VHS to CD, like the DVD now? You do a lot of tech stuff.
We do home movies very quickly and very
Yeah,
reasonably.
one of my friends is like, I've got a crate of these I got to bring in.
Yeah.
We do from the only thing we can't do anymore is Umatic. That was the first machine in the 70s.
Yeah.
That weighed 75 pounds.
Yeah.
But we do Beta, we do VHS, and we do DVD to DVD. And we're open every Friday and Saturday in the old pickle factory, which
I don't know where that is.
It's on Grove Street, which is just off East Avenue. If you know where the Del Monte Hotel and Spa is, it used to be the other side of the tracks in the depot, speaking of entertainment. Right there, we're at 1 Grove Street, and we're open every Friday and Saturday from 11 in the morning until 5 in the
And you
evening.
can come down French Road if you're coming the other way.
Yes, if you come down French
I
Road,
think
French Road, it's the last exit to the right. That's Grove Street, just before you hit East Avenue.
I know a certain podcast host has missed an exit multiple times over the year and had to go down east and come down the other street. But no, it's actually not very hard to find. It's a really cool building too.
That's
And
great.
it sounds like a great experience too. But then we're also now anything you want to say, Danny? Anything to plug? Anything to?
No, just thanks for letting me be a part of this, and Bob's my hero in Rochester.
I can see why. I
Yeah.
mean, I really respect.
There's no more of a treasure
you've
trove
done.
than this
It's
guy. You
interesting
should
you
do a
mention
book.
Shifty Gears, right?
Yeah.
Because in 1948, I lost to Shifty Gears, I think 6-1 or 6-2 in Dundee, New York. In the same year, I lost to Eddie Feiner, the king in his court,
Oh my God!
I was 15.
Bob,
So I remember my dad would, like, I had to take care of him his last 5 years, unfortunately, because he had dementia. But he would remember, we would go by Kodak, and he would say, this is where the ball field
sure,
was.
remember that?
They always remember that. He, like, his softballs, he played semi-pro football for the Seneca Blackhawks, too, which is really
Well,
cool.
it was interesting because in George Eastman's will, they couldn't cut down that copper beech tree that was in right center field.
Right.
And I was there one time when I was probably 8 or 9 years old with my uncle, and there was a ball player named Frankie Cupo, and he hit a ball into the tennis court, which is probably about 310 feet. But they only gave him a double because they said it touched a leaf on the tree on the way over. And 2 innings or 3 innings later, he hit one into the tennis court again, but that one didn't touch the tree.
There's so much, like, so many great stories.
It's
Like,
great.
But we're going to play also now, how is Soul Passenger doing? And we're going to play a tune from them.
Oh, well, we've been recording some new songs. COVID really struck us hard. We were playing fairly regularly.
I've heard this story so many times.
Yeah, and all the other guys really are playing like with a lot of other people and stuff like that, so it's hard to get the gigs going. But we have some new songs coming out.
And we'll play. Do you have a song you want to play out of, or just we just going to say
sure.
wait till the end? You can surprise Soul Passenger song.
Sounds good.
That way I don't have to remember more. But thank you everybody. Thank you, Daddy, Ethan, and Bob. And it's really been an honor for this one because I've always admired what you've done, stay in business, and
Absolutely, Bob.
Yeah, I might be the only 90-year-old video audio guy that's still in retail.
Unbelievable.
Somebody should help you write a book.
Yeah,
so I was
you really
saying-
should. I mean, this would be. We should do more of these and just take them and give them to somebody to transcribe them.
Well, the blessing is really that my memory has stayed pretty
See,
good.
I know because like I said, my dad passed away at 91, and I had a caregiver for him. He's always a very good guy, but to see what I always say, it's so great to have your memory.
I think you're doing great. Are you kidding me?
And on that note, thanks for listening. I thought it was awesome, and go find some good old stereos and go see Bob sometime. Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
In quest for quickness, moving quicker. You make the move better. Conclusions coming without answers. You make the move better. Need to be cool to be cool. Yes, it's true. Some we almost do, and that we do. In quest for quickness, moving quicker. You make the move better. Conclusions coming without answers. No sadness, don't let it fool you. She's in the sky, she's not a clue you. Request a mad moving woman. One who's a bit or two. Insist that she be sent from heaven.